Today's story is titled From Cleaner to CEO's Wife, the inspiring true story of Olaigo's rise from dust to diamonds. Olaigo was born into poverty in the heart of Lagos, Nigeria. Her father, a struggling artisan, and her mother, a vegetable vendor, worked tirelessly to provide for their children. Despite the hardships, their home was filled with love and unshakable faith in God. Ola grew up watching her mother pray, believing that God had a plan for them. Every night, she whispered her own prayers, asking for a future beyond the slums. After finishing high school with top grades, but no money for university, Ola took a job as a janitor in a prestigious company. With a mop in one hand and dreams in her heart, she always prayed to God while scrubbing the marble floors, envisioning herself in one of the executive offices. Her determination, inquisitiveness, and knowledge-seeking inquiries caught the attention of some employees, but many saw her as just another worker. Unbothered, Ola remained steadfast, believing that one day she would sit behind a desk instead of wiping them. Despite long hours and exhaustion, Ola used her little stipend to register in an online library, borrow textbooks, and studied late into the night. She saved every penny, hoping to fund her education. One day, the CEO's assistant noticed her diligence and asked her about her dreams. Inspired by Ola's resilience, she encouraged her to apply for several scholarships and even helped her navigate the application process. After months of waiting and countless rejections, an email finally arrived. Ola had won a full scholarship to study business administration at a prestigious university abroad. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she fell to her knees in gratitude to God. She rushed home to share the news with her parents, who embraced her, danced with her, and thanked God that their prayers had finally been answered. Arriving in Canada was overwhelming. The tall buildings, fast-paced lifestyle, and cultural differences initially intimidated her. But she refused to be discouraged. She juggled her studies with a part-time job, proving herself in every class. Through it all, she remained grounded in her faith, finding strength in prayers and the small African church she joined. As part of her school program, Ola secured an internship at a multinational corporation. She impressed her supervisors with her work ethics, intelligence, and humility. She always arrived early, worked late, volunteered for several projects, and took on challenges eagerly. Several colleagues noticed her passion for work, with one person taking particular notice: Ethan, the CEO's son, who was captivated by her drive, sincerity, and beauty. Ethan was intrigued by Ola's determination. He began to interact with her, first in professional settings, then as a friend. Ola, cautious yet kind, focused on her work while appreciating his genuine interest in her journey. Slowly, they built a strong friendship based on mutual respect and admiration. 4 years later, upon graduation, Ola was offered an international job at the same company where she interned. Overjoyed, she called her parents, who praised God for his blessings. She moved into a modest apartment and worked diligently, knowing she carried the hope of her family and community on her shoulders. As she excelled in her career, Ethan and Ola grew closer. He admired her strength and resilience, while she valued his kindness, respect, and genuine care for her well-being. Their friendship deepened, but Ola remained wary. She had worked too hard to let emotions derail her progress. Ethan, understanding her fears, remained patient, proving his intentions were true and pure. Ethan officially introduced Ola to his family. Used to wealth and privilege, his parents were initially skeptical, but her intelligence, humility, and faith won them over. She shared her journey with them, moving even the most skeptical hearts. Eventually, they accepted her as part of their family. On a trip back to Nigeria, Ethan surprised Ola with a heartfelt proposal in the very market where she once sold vegetables with her mother. Overwhelmed, she said yes, knowing that their love was built on respect, faith, and friendship. It was a full circle moment, proof that faith and perseverance can change destinies. Their wedding was a grand one, but deeply personal affair. Dignitaries, colleagues, and loved ones gathered to celebrate their union. Ola's parents, once burdened by poverty, beamed with pride as they watched their daughter walk down the aisle. The girl who once cleaned floors now stood as the bride of the CEO's son, not by chance, but by grace and hard work. Determined to help others, Ola and Ethan established a foundation that funded education for underprivileged students. Ola personally mentored young women, encouraging them to dream beyond their circumstances. She refused to forget where she came from and dedicated herself to creating opportunities for others. Despite the luxury surrounding her, Ola remained humble. She spoke at conferences, sharing her story to inspire others. She and Ethan traveled the world, working on initiatives to uplift struggling communities. Her journey from a poor cleaner to a global change maker became a beacon of hope. Though deeply in love, their marriage was not devoid of the issues that interracial marriages face. Cultural differences, societal expectations, and media scrutiny threatened to shake their union. But with faith, communication, and commitment, they overcame each obstacle, growing stronger together. Ola gave birth to their first child, a daughter named Grace. Holding her baby, she was reminded of her own humble beginnings. She vowed to raise her daughter with the same values of faith, perseverance, and kindness. Ola launched an empowerment program for young women from disadvantaged backgrounds. Through workshops, mentorship, and funding, she helped thousands of girls gain access to education and opportunities. Her story went viral, and then one day, she was invited to speak at the United Nations, sharing her own story on a global stage. As she took the podium, she saw the reflection of the girl who once cleaned floors and dared to dream. Her voice trembled with gratitude and power. Years later, Ola sat on the balcony of her beautiful home, watching the sun set with Ethan by her side. She reflected on her journey, the struggles, the prayers, the victories. Through it all, one thing remained constant: her faith in God. She was living proof that with belief in God, perseverance, consistent hard work, and grace, dreams do come true. Thank you for listening and watching. Do well to subscribe to my channel for more interesting stories. Thank you. What if the dream wedding of the century became the ultimate act of rebellion? Bimbo Fadeke was supposed to say I do, but instead she chose freedom over fear, leaving her controlling fiancé at the altar in front of hundreds. A scandal? Oh yes, but also the start of her greatest journey. Bimbo, a bright and ambitious young woman, believed she had found her happily ever after when she met Richard Bankole, a wealthy and charming businessman. Their whirlwind romance felt like something out of a dream. Candlelit dinners, spontaneous weekend getaways, whispered promises of forever. When he proposed under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights in front of a cheering crowd, she eagerly said yes. The world sees perfection, but beneath the surface, small warning signs begin to appear, like cracks in a beautiful glass vase. As the wedding planning begins, Bimbo noticed subtle shifts in Richard's demeanor. His charm remained intact, but with an emerging possessive streak. He insisted on making all the decisions, disregarding her opinions entirely. The wedding venue, the guest list, and even her choice of dress. Everything must align with his grand vision. When she voiced her concerns, he dismissed them with a condescending smile, calling her silly for worrying. The suffocation crept in slowly, but she convinced herself it's just pre-wedding stress and jitters. One evening, while celebrating their engagement, Bimbo accidentally spilled wine on Richard's expensive suit. His charming facade shattered in an instant. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkened, and he lashed out, calling her careless and ungrateful. The restaurant fell into a stunned silence. Humiliated, Bimbo fought back tears. Hours later, he apologized profusely, blaming it on work stress. He held her close, whispering that he loved her, that she is his world. She forgave him, convincing herself it was an isolated incident. Bimbo confided in her best friend Lisa about Richard's growing temper. Lisa's face hardened with concern. "Bimbo, this isn't normal," she warned. But denial is easier than confrontation. Bimbo brushed it off as stress-induced mood swings. Meanwhile, Richard's possessiveness tightened like a noose. He started monitoring her phone calls, questioning her every move, demanding to know where she is at all times. When she pushed back, he showered her with lavish gifts and grand gestures, keeping her tied to his world. Richard made a shocking decree. He said, once they are married, Bimbo will quit her job. A proper wife doesn't need to work, he insisted. Bimbo, an ambitious woman with her dreams, refused. His reaction was chilling. He belittled her, mocked her aspirations, and accused her of not valuing their future. The wedding date loomed closer, and Bimbo felt trapped, torn between her fear of losing herself and the overwhelming pressure to go through with it. Days after their traditional marriage, Bimbo stayed out late with Lisa. When she returned, Richard was by the door waiting, his eyes burning with fury. He grabbed her wrist so hard that he left a bruise. "You belong to me, Angela," he screamed. Fear gripped her heart. That night, staring at her reflection, she finally acknowledged the truth. that she's about to marry a monster. But what could she do now? Invitations had been sent out, vendors booked. Her parents expected a grand wedding. The thought of backing out seemed impossible. The night before the white wedding, Bimbo stared at herself in the mirror. The wedding dress, a vision of lace and pearls, hung on the door, a haunting reminder of the life she was about to step into. Panic crept up her spine. Can she go through with this? What will people say if she runs? Doubt and fear battled within her. But an urgent whisper echoed in her mind. Leave now, before it's too late. The grand wedding was set. Hundreds of guests arriving with music playing. Richard stood at the altar, waiting. Bimbo walked down the aisle, escorted by her father. But with every step, memories flashed. Every insult, every bruise, every moment she felt small and helpless. Her hands trembled, her body shook, her breath quickened, and then, just inches from Richard, she froze. The weight of her decision pressed down on her. Instead of taking Richard's outstretched hands, Bimbo stepped back. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice, sharp and steady, said, I can't do this. Silence engulfed the church. Richard's face twisted with fury. He took a step forward, but before he could speak, Bimbo turned and ran out of the church, away from the suffocating expectations into the unknown. Lisa ran after her. Bimbo sought refuge with Lisa, who held her as she sobbed with relief. Meanwhile, Richard's fury knew no bounds. The tabloids didn't help matters. The tabloid carried the news with headlines. The runaway bride. The social media space buzzed with several comments and different viewpoints from well-known social critics. In response, Richard smeared Bimbo's name, calling her unstable and ungrateful. Her parents were shocked, confused, but Lisa stood by her side, assuring her that she did the right thing. The public humiliation stung, but freedom tasted sweeter. Bimbo took some days off from work and the public and embarked on a painful yet empowering journey of self-discovery, therapy, and support from Lisa and her family, who later got to know the real reasons for her actions and helped her to untangle years of manipulation she had spent with Richard. She then secured another job in another city. Despite all of that, whispers still followed her. Some pitiful, some scornful, but she held her head high. She was no longer Richard's pawn. Richard refused to let go. He appeared at her apartment demanding she reconsider. But she refused his threats, and she sought a restraining order. For the first time, she felt truly free. Bimbo thrived in her career and became an advocate for women in toxic relationships. She spoke at events, sharing her story, empowering others to recognize their worth. She transformed her pain into purpose. Years later, Bimbo met Kojo, a kind, respectful Ghanaian man who cherished her independence. At first, she hesitated, afraid of falling into old patterns. But Kojo was different. He listened, supported, and never controlled. Love, for the first time, felt safe for Bimbo. Bimbo stood before a mirror, wearing a wedding dress once again. But this time she smiled. She was not bound by fear, nor shackled by expectations. This wedding was her choice. She had the peace of mind that she was doing the right thing by getting married to Kojo. As she walked down the aisle, her heart was steady with a beautiful smile that came from a place of understanding that she was getting married to the right person. She did not run, but was happy and grateful that she did not get married under pressure to the wrong person years ago, but glad she was embracing a future she built on her own terms. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing to African Tales by Ify. Do well to turn on your notification button for more exciting stories coming your way. Thank you. Bye. Hello, my fantastic community. Welcome back to my storytelling channel. Today's story is inspired from a true story my father told me as a child, though adapted. According to my late dad, this story happened many years before he was born and was passed down to him by his own father. This story, titled The Betrayal, tells of a sacrilege that happened somewhere in the eastern part of Nigeria many donkey years ago, before you and I were born. Amakpo village was a place of deep traditions where lineage and honor were sacred. Dimkpa, a vibrant and capable 28-year-old man, was next in line to become the chief of the village. Known for his strength, intelligence, and compassion, he was beloved by the villagers, who eagerly anticipated his reign. But within his own family, jealousy festered. Dimkpa's uncle, Nzewi, was a man driven by greed and resentment. To him, Dimkpa's ascent meant the end of his control over the wealth and power he secretly hoarded. For years, Nzewi schemed, waiting for an opportunity to eliminate Dimkpa. That opportunity came on the eve of a grand festival. Nzewi, under the guise of celebration, lured Dimkpa away from the safety of the village. Dimkpa trusted his uncle, never suspecting the betrayal that awaited him. In the dead of the night, Nzewi arranged for mercenaries to ambush Dimkpa, binding him in chains and selling him to slave traders who transported him far away from Amakpo. Dimkpa's world turned upside down. Once destined to lead his people, he now found himself a slave in a distant land. But even in the depths of despair, Dimkpa's spirit remained unbroken. He resolved to survive and adapt. For 8 long years, Dimkpa worked tirelessly, earning the respect of his masters through his intelligence, humility, and diligence. His captors recognized his value, granting him more responsibilities beyond the typical duties of a slave. In time, Dimkpa's perseverance paid off. His masters granted him freedom, recognizing his extraordinary character. Though free, Dimkpa was far from home and had no means to return. He decided to rebuild his life in the foreign land. Leveraging the skills and the connections he had developed during his years of servitude, Dimkpa ventured into trade. He started small, but his honesty and hard work quickly brought him success. 3 years later, Dimkpa had amassed so much wealth beyond anything he could have imagined. He built a thriving business empire, employing hundreds and living a life of comfort. Yet, the memory of his betrayal lingered. He longed for justice, but chose not to return to Amakpo. The pain of his uncle's treachery and the uncertainty of his welcome held him back. Instead, he focused on his new life, using his resources to help others in need. Back in Amakpo, Nzewi had seized power in Dimkpa's absence. He manipulated the elders and cunningly crowned himself king, spreading lies about Dimkpa's disappearance. Under his rule, the village suffered. Nzewi's greed led to heavy taxes and the hoarding of communal resources. The once prosperous village began to decline, but no one dared challenge him. His power was absolute, or so it seemed. In his 9th year as king, Nzewi's health began to fail. A mysterious illness consumed him, leaving him weak and bedridden. No healer in the land could heal him or cure him. Desperate, Nzewi summoned the village prophets. Their words chilled him to the core. "You have wronged an innocent man. Your sickness is a curse born of betrayal. Until you make amends, you will suffer and your kingdom will fall." Nzewi's heart gripped with fear. He knew exactly who the prophets referred to: Dimkpa. He had hoped the young man was lost forever, perhaps even dead. But whispers of a wealthy man in a distant land who bore Dimkpa's name had reached his ears. Reluctantly, Nzewi gathered his cabinet chiefs and set out to find his nephew, driven by desperation and guilt. The journey was long and arduous, but they eventually arrived in the town where Dimkpa now lived. The man they found was unrecognizable from the youth they had betrayed. Dimkpa stood tall and confident, dressed in fine clothes and surrounded by loyal allies. His success radiated from him, but so did his dignity and wisdom. When Nzewi and the chiefs approached, Dimkpa's face hardened. The sight of his uncle stirred painful memories. Nzewi, now frail and humbled, fell to his knees before Dimkpa, confessing his betrayal. "I sold you into slavery out of greed and envy," he admitted, tears streaming down his face. "I have suffered for my sins, and I beg for your forgiveness. Without it, I will die and Amakpo will crumble." Dimkpa listened in silence, his expression unreadable. His heart wrestled with conflicting emotions: anger at his uncle's betrayal, sorrow for the suffering of his people, and a deep sense of duty that transcended personal grievances. After a long pause, Dimkpa spoke. "Nzewi, you wronged me in ways that cannot be undone," he said, his voice steady but firm. "You stole my destiny and cost me years of suffering, but I will not let your betrayal define me. I forgive you, not for your sake, but for the sake of my own peace and the well-being of our people. However, forgiveness does not mean there will be no consequences." Dimkpa declared he would not return to Amakpo, for his life had taken a new path. But he sent Nzewi back with a decree. The leadership of the village must be restored to the elders, and the wealth Nzewi had hoarded must be redistributed to rebuild the community. Dimkpa also sent resources to aid the village, ensuring its recovery and prosperity. Nzewi returned to Amakpo, his illness lifting as he fulfilled Dimkpa's conditions. Humbled and broken, he stepped down as king, allowing the village to heal. Though Dimpa never returned to claim his place as chief, his legacy lived on the reforms he inspired and the hope he restored back to the community. Morals from this story: greed and envy lead to destruction. Nzewi's betrayal brought him temporary power, but ultimately led to his downfall and suffering. Dimpa's strength, determination, and integrity allowed him to rise above his circumstances and build a new life. Lastly, forgiveness is powerful. By choosing forgiveness, Dimpa freed himself from the burden of hatred and ensured the healing of his community. What more lessons did you take away from this tale? Even though this incident took place a long time ago, it still has relevance today, whether it is in our everyday interactions with people we have treated unfairly or when we've shabbily taken something that is not ours. Kindly put yours in the comment section. Thank you. Hello my fantastic followers. Today's storytelling episode is titled From Poverty to Power, Adiara's Unbelievable Journey. Adiara was born in Calabar, a city steeped in the rich cultural heritage of the Efik people. She was the apple of her parents' eyes, an only child who filled their modest home with laughter and joy. Her parents, Margaret and Emmanuel, were civil servants who valued discipline, education, and integrity above all else. Though their income was modest, they made sure that Adiara grew up in a loving and principled environment. In their little home adorned with Calabar carvings and colorful fabric, Adiara learned the values of hard work and humility. Emmanuel often said, "Adiara, no matter how hard life gets, always remember that integrity is the greatest wealth." These words would echo in her mind long after he was gone. Life seemed almost perfect until the fateful day when she was 15. Margaret and Emmanuel had to travel to Port Harcourt for a work conference. They promised to bring back her favorite snacks and stories of their trip. Adiara waved them off, her heart light and carefree, unaware that it was the last time she would see her parents alive. That evening, neighbors came with solemn faces and devastating news. Margaret and Emmanuel had been involved in a ghastly car accident. They didn't survive. The weight of their loss hit Adiara like a tidal wave, shattering her world into fragments she didn't know how to piece together. With no close relatives in Calabar, she was sent to live with her maternal grandparents in Port Harcourt. Her grandparents, kind but struggling to make ends meet, welcomed her into their humble home. This transition was stark. From her parents' modest but comfortable life, she now lived in a cramped, leaking house in a bustling neighborhood where survival was the order of the day. Adiara's once carefree childhood turned into a battle for survival. After school, she started working as a sales girl in a small shop to contribute to the household. The long hours standing behind the counter, coupled with her school assignments, were grueling, yet she kept at it, fueled by the memory of her parents' hard work and their unwavering belief in her potential. When it was time to go to the university, Adiara faced another hurdle. Her grandparents couldn't afford her tuition, and she was forced to take up multiple part-time jobs to pay her fees. By day, she attended lectures. By night, she worked as a cleaner and later as a waitress at a small restaurant. Her friends teased her for constantly being tired and always counting pennies, but Adiara was determined. Some of her peers took an easier route. They flaunted expensive gifts from older, wealthier men and urged her to follow suit. Adiara, why are you suffering? Get yourself a rich boyfriend or sugar daddy and your problems will disappear, they said. Sometimes, when her rent was due or her shoes were worn out and there was no money for replacement, the temptation was almost unbearable. But then, she will remember her father's voice saying, "Integrity is the greatest wealth." She will think of her mother's gentle hands, guiding her through homework, teaching her to spell words like perseverance and dignity. Those memories gave her the strength to resist the allure of shortcuts. When her grandparents passed away in her final year of university, Adiara was truly alone. She could have despaired, but instead, she used her pain as fuel. She worked even harder, balancing her grief with her studies and work. By the time she graduated, she had achieved something extraordinary. She had earned her degree with honors, despite the odds stacked against her. Finding a job after university wasn't easy, but Adiara was no stranger to challenges. She applied to countless companies, walking the streets of Port Harcourt in the scorching sun, her neatly pressed clothes hiding the turmoil within. After months of relentless searching, she landed a position as a junior administrative assistant at a small firm. The salary was meager, but it was a start. Adiara poured herself into her work, staying late to learn new skills and taking on tasks outside her job description. Her colleagues admired her dedication, and her supervisors took notice. Within a few years, she was promoted, then promoted again. One day, at a charity medical outreach event organized by her company, she met David, a young, compassionate doctor. David was everything she admired: hardworking, kind, and principled. They bonded over shared values and dreams, and their friendship blossomed into a deep, abiding love. David loved Adiara fiercely, admiring her strength and resilience. "You are the strongest woman I know," he often told her. They got married in a simple but beautiful ceremony, surrounded by friends and well-wishers. Together, they built a home filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. Adiara's career continued to soar. Through sheer determination, she rose through the ranks to become an executive in her company. She worked tirelessly to create the life she had once dreamed of, a life filled with stability, dignity, and purpose. Her success wasn't just about money. It was just about proving to herself that she could overcome anything. Looking back, Adiara often thought about the path she had chosen. It had been far from easy, and there were moments when she felt like giving up. But she was glad she hadn't taken the shortcuts some of her friends had suggested. Many of them were now trapped in situations they regretted, while she had built a life of which her parents would have been proud of. Through her journey, Adiara learned that hard work and integrity might not always bring immediate rewards, but they create a foundation that lasts a lifetime. She became an inspiration to others in her community, mentoring young girls and sharing her story to encourage them to pursue their dreams with courage and determination. As she sat in her office one afternoon, overlooking the city skyline, a young intern approached her with a question. "Ma, how did you do it? How did you get to where you are today?" Adiara smiled, her mind flashing back to the countless challenges she had overcome. "Hard work, patience, and faith," she said. "There are no shortcuts to a life worth living." And so, Adiara's story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the fact that while the road to success may be long and arduous, the rewards of integrity and perseverance are worth every step. Mohammed Bello was a young, ambitious entrepreneur from northern Nigeria, born into a devout Muslim family. Despite his faith, Mohammed was open-minded, influenced by his education and diverse experiences. He believed in a world where people's hearts spoke louder than their religious or tribal affiliations. It was this openness that led him to meet Adaeze, a stunningly intelligent and kind-hearted woman from southeastern Nigeria. Adaeze, the daughter of Sir Emeka, a knight in a well-known church, was pursuing a degree in architecture when she met Mohammed at a business networking event in Lagos. The shared love for innovation and helping others sparked a connection that quickly deepened into love. However, their relationship was not without challenges. When Mohammed brought up his love for Adaeze to his family, their reaction was swift and unrelenting. "An Igbo girl?" his mother exclaimed. "Do you want to bring shame to this family? There are so many fine Hausa girls. Why her?" Mohammed stood tall in the center of the room, his dark eyes calm but resolute as they scanned the faces of his family. Dressed in a finely embroidered kaftan and matching Hausa cap, his appearance was the picture of dignity and composure. The room was heavy with tension. The intricate patterns on the carpet and the vibrant hand-woven tapestries on the walls seemed to close in around them, amplifying the charged atmosphere. Mohammed's father, quieter but visibly uneasy, sat a few steps away, his hand resting on his chin in contemplation. Standing slightly apart, Adaeze looked poised but visibly nervous. Her striking dark skin glowed in the soft light filtering through the window. Her 4C afro framed her face beautifully, highlighting her high forehead and sharp features. She was dressed in a vibrant Ankara dress, a bold choice that only added to her graceful presence. Her intelligent, kind eyes shifted from Mohammed to his mother, uncertain of what to say. Similarly, Adaeze's father, Sir Emeka, was vehemently opposed. "An Igbo girl has no business marrying a northern Muslim," he declared. "You are the daughter of a knight. Our family's name is rooted in the church. Think of what people will say." For 4 years, Mohammed and Adaeze weathered the storm of opposition. They endured accusations, family interventions, and even ostracism. Mohammed's mother arranged several introductions to prospective Muslim brides, while Adaeze's father encouraged her to marry an accomplished man within their church. Despite the relentless pressure, Mohammed and Adaeze stood firm, convinced that their love could bridge the gap between the families. The pivotal moment came unexpectedly. Sir Emeka, a man known for his resilience and vitality, fell gravely ill. A diagnosis of a rare heart condition required urgent medical attention abroad. The family was devastated. Despite their efforts, they could not raise the necessary funds for his treatment. When Mohammed heard of Sir Emeka's plight, he made a decision that stunned everyone. Without hesitation, he sold shares in a blue-chip company he had invested in and raised the funds needed to fly Sir Emeka to Germany. He even arranged for top cardiologists and covered all medical expenses, ensuring that Adaeze's father received the best possible care. At first, Sir Emeka was reluctant to accept help from Mohammed. "I don't need charity," he muttered, his pride battling his desperation. However, with Adese's gentle persuasion, he reluctantly agreed. Mohammed's actions went beyond financial assistance. He traveled to visit Sir Emeka and upon his return to Nigeria, called regularly to check on Sir Emeka's progress. Irrespective of not being accepted by the family, Mohammed ensured that he made the best provisions towards ensuring that Sir Emeka had the best medical care. He further reassured Adese during the stressful period. His selflessness spoke louder than any argument the family had made in the past. Sir Emeka's surgery was successful, and his recovery marked a new chapter for the family. During his stay in Germany, Sir Emeka had time to deeply reflect on Mohammed's kind actions. He thought of the young man's unwavering dedication and selflessness, qualities he realized went far beyond tribal or religious boundaries. He also remembered how he had badly treated and embarrassed Mohammed on numerous occasions. Despite all of this, Mohammed did not withhold his abilities to show kindness. When he returned to Nigeria, Sir Emeka invited Mohammed to his home. For the first time, Sir Emeka saw beyond the labels of religion and tribe. He saw the man who had risked his financial stability and comfort to save his life. "Mohammed," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "I misjudged you. A man who can sacrifice so much for his love is a man I will be proud to call my son-in-law." Mohammed's family, moved by the story, also softened their stance. His mother, who had once disapproved vehemently, began to see Adese not as an outsider, but as a daughter. She even invited Adese for family gatherings, teaching her Hausa traditions and sharing family recipes. Gradually, the two families began to bond over shared meals and stories, creating a bridge where division once stood. Mohammed and Adese's wedding was a blend of cultures and traditions. Hausa drummers performed alongside Igbo dancers, and the guest list included both imams and pastors. Adese's father wore a traditional dress, while Mohammed's mother tied a brightly colored gele, symbolizing unity between the families. The wedding ceremony itself was a celebration of unity. Mohammed's friends from the north mingled with Adese's family members from the east. The bride and the groom honored both traditions, exchanging vows in both English and their native languages. The reception hall was decorated with a fusion of Hausa and Igbo motifs, showcasing the beauty of their union. The highlight of the event came when Sir Emeka gave a heartfelt speech. He recounted Mohammed's unwavering character, his bravery in standing by Adese despite the challenges, and his remarkable sacrifice. "It's not about tribe or religion," he said, his voice steady. "It's about the person who will stand by your child when it matters the most." After their marriage, Mohammed and Adese became active advocates for intertribal unity. They launched a foundation aimed at promoting understanding and acceptance among Nigerian diverse communities. The foundation organized workshops, cultural exchange programs, and initiatives to support young couples facing similar challenges. Their story became a symbol of hope and inspiration. Newspapers wrote about the union that defined boundaries, and their interviews on national television resonated with many. Mohammed and Adese's love not only changed their families, but also touched the hearts of countless Nigerians. Their story became an inspiration in their community, challenging deep-seated biases about intertribal marriages in Nigeria. Mohammed and Adese showed that marriage is not about tribe, religion, or societal expectations. It is about choosing a partner who will stand by you through life storms, a person who would go above and beyond to ensure your well-being. They proved that love, when rooted in respect and selflessness, could overcome even the most formidable barriers. Their union became a beacon of hope, encouraging others to look beyond divisions and embrace the beauty of diversity in building a life together. Thank you. Today's story is titled The Ugly Billionaire. In the bustling heart of Johannesburg, where glass towers reached for the clouds and neon lights painted the night, lived Bandile Khumalo, a man of immense wealth and power. Yet, no matter how high his fortune climbed, Bandile Khumalo's reputation was not shaped by his money, but by his appearance. Bandile Khumalo was born with features that set him apart in ways few could ignore. He was short in height, and a severe facial scar from an accident in his youth carved across his left cheek. His eyes, one slightly drooping, gave him a perpetually tired look, and his crooked nose hinted a long-forgotten brawl. Whispers of his height and looks followed him through boardrooms and social galas. Yet, he carried himself with undeniable confidence. To Bandile Khumalo, the world was a chessboard, every move calculated, every risk assessed. The ugly billionaire, as the tabloids called him, found solace not in mirrors, but in the empire he built brick by brick. But beneath the armor of wealth and strategy lay a man who longed for something he couldn't buy: love. Bandile Khumalo's towering penthouse overlooked the entire city, but as he gazed down at the bustling streets below, he often felt like the loneliest man in the world. Lavish parties, stunning models, and power-hungry socialites filled his evenings, but their presence vanished with the morning light. He had tried countless times to find someone who could see past his appearance. Women admired his wealth. Some even tolerated his height and ugly scars for the lifestyle he offered. But none stayed for him. Their affections were fleeting, their interests conditional. His board members suggested he stay single, claiming marriage or serious relationships might be a distraction to his billion-dollar empire. Yet, deep down, Bandile Khumalo believed love could be his greatest investment. One evening, Bandile wandered into a small art gallery tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. There were no paparazzi, no flashing cameras, just walls lined with paintings that spoke more words than ever. Among the crowd stood Elsie, a tall school teacher with paint-speckled hands and a warm smile. Unlike others, Elsie did not flinch at Bandile's scars. She greeted him like any other visitor, her eyes fixed on the earth rather than the man before her. Bandile was captivated. They spoke at length, not about stocks or luxury, but of passion, color, and life. Elsie treated him like an equal, unaware of his status, until one of the gallery owners whispered his name. Even then, she remained unfazed. Bandile returned to the gallery week after week, and each visit deepened his feelings. For the first time in years, someone saw him, not as the ugly billionaire, but as a man yearning for connection. Bandile and Elsie's relationship blossomed in secret. They dined at hidden bistros, and strolled through quiet parks, avoiding the eyes of the public. But even as Bandile felt love bloom, he feared the inevitable storm. When the tabloids discovered their relationship, Elsie became the target of relentless scrutiny. Headlines screamed of her settling for wealth, while others mocked Bandile for thinking he could be loved. Elsie endured it all, but Bandile's heart ached watching her suffer for his sake. The pressure mounted from every angle. Investors began questioning Bandile's focus, and Elsie's professional life as a school teacher became overshadowed by her association with him. One evening, after a particularly brutal news segment, Elsie broke down. "Bandile," she said, "I can't breathe." She said this through her tears. "This isn't the life I wanted. I don't know who I am anymore." Bandile's heart shattered, but he couldn't deny the truth in her words. They decided to part ways, hoping the distance would shield Elsie from the chaos. The weeks that followed were agony for both. Bandile threw himself into work, but his victories felt hollow without Elsie by his side. Meanwhile, Elsie struggled to find herself again, torn between her love for Bandile and her desire for Norma. Bandile's office became his sanctuary and his prison. Every triumph in his business was met with a fleeting rush of satisfaction, but quickly eclipsed by the void Elsie had left behind. He told himself he was building a future for them, but the silence that followed each breakthrough only deepened his solitude. Elsie, on the other hand, sought refuge in the mundane. She took long walks through the bustling streets, where strangers' laughter reminded her of simpler times. She volunteered at a local shelter, hoping that helping others herself might heal her fractured heart. But no matter how she tried to distract herself, her thoughts always drifted back to Bandile. The way his eyes lit up when he spoke of his dreams, the warmth of his touch, the quiet strength she had once leaned on. The nights were the hardest. Bandile would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by memories of their shared laughter. Elsie would gaze at the moon, wondering if he was looking at it too, and whether their paths were destined to cross again or remain parallel, forever out of reach. Months later, a devastating earthquake struck a small region where one of Bandile's charities operated. Bandile immediately flew out to oversee relief efforts and was stunned to find Elsie already there, helping children in makeshift shelters. Their eyes met across the crowded camp, and in that moment, words were unnecessary. "I couldn't stay away," Elsie whispered when they finally spoke. "You are part of who I am, Bandile. I would rather face the world's judgment with you than live without you." Bandile took her hands, his voice trembling. "I'll fight for us, Elsie, no matter what it takes." "Love isn't about appearances, Bandile Kumalo. It's about the heart," she whispered, holding his scarred hands tightly. Determined to shield Elsie, Bandile used his power not for profit, but to reshape the narrative. He publicly defended their relationship, shutting down media outlets that attempted to tarnish her name. Slowly, the world saw Bandile Kumalo not as an ugly billionaire, but as a man willing to fight for love with a kind heart. Elsie stood by him through every battle, becoming a pillar in his world of chaos. She encouraged him to go for a facial reconstructive surgery. Together, they opened art schools and charities for children living with disabilities, creating safe spaces for others who felt unseen by society. As the years passed, Bandile and Elsie's bond grew stronger. They adopted children from orphanages, offering love to those often overlooked. Bandile's empire expanded globally, but his greatest pride was the family he built. Love transformed him, proving that even the ugliest scars could be touched by beauty. The story of the ugly billionaire became one of timeless beauty, retold for generations as proof that beneath every scar lies the potential for love.